Hey everybody, welcome to Big Balls Fantasy Football, the only show with powerful picks, sexy super fans, and that's really fun. I'm your host, 20-year fantasy veteran, Greg Reifstick.
And I'm your co-host, Jenilee Bork, a 10-year fantasy veteran. And all of us, including Zoe, are Bears fans. And together we are the beauty
and the beast
of fantasy football experts.
So, the blackout is over. It only took 1 week. Thank you, Bears, for finally taking enough weeks to get your first home victory. Way to go, Bears, against the Vikings.
Yeah, that is unbelievable that they're just now getting their first home victory in week 11.
Yeah.
But they did win. So
yeah. So it was good. We're going to show you later in the show, though, that we did go to the Tinhorn, and we did film there, and we had a lot of Bears hate going this week. And you're going to see some fans, most of them that showed up in Bulls gear or in Blackhawks gear, because they wanted to show their loyalty to Chicago. I went retro with 34 here, back when the Bears could, play. But, still a lot of bitterness going on with the team, wouldn't you say, even though we finally eked one out?
Yeah, well, I think what's so frustrating about this is that the Bears season is already over.
Yeah,
they got to win, but they're 4-6. There's just really not a lot to celebrate in that win. So it's just hard to feel good. A lot of Chicago fans' focus has obviously changed to the Bulls and the Blackhawks, teams that, will hopefully be in the playoffs. But, I think once your team can't make the playoffs anymore, you just kind of throw your hands in the air and you're like, well, woo-hoo, dip-de-doo.
Speaking of which, we're going to take a slight detour. Let's talk a little basketball here. We went and actually saw the Bulls play against the Clippers, and we won, and basically it was a Bulls home game.
Yeah, it was such a great game. I actually had a woman come up to me after. She said, I've gone to a ton of LA games, Laker games, Clipper games, Kings games, whatever. And she's like, it was so crazy to hear the Bulls chant and the fans chanting for the Bulls.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've never been at an LA stadium where the other team has so many fans there. And I told her, hey, Chicago fans travel really well. We're diehard sports fans. And a lot of Chicago people live out here too.
Yeah. I mean, the last time I experienced anything like this was when I went with Prost, our diehard Packer fan, and we went to see them play at Charger Stadium. And the same thing happens. The Charger fans let their tickets go to the Packers because the Packers fans will spend a lot of money on them. And every single time Aaron Rodgers throws a touchdown, it's like, it's insane. So that was fun. So yes, but we still have to concentrate, of course, on fantasy. And the Bears, fantasy-wise, I got screwed because I left Cutler in both leagues because I was fucking pissed at you, dude, on my bench and got burned for 57 points in one of my leagues. He went 31 for 43, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. The Bears, of course, won 21-13. And you got burned a little bit, too.
I got burned a little bit, too. I sat Alshon and Brandon Marshall, and I know Marshall's really never a guy you sit typically. But my concern was more so because of the fact that the energy has just not been there on the field. The effort hasn't been there. So, I decided to play some other people. Worked out in the league I sat Marshall. I still won. The league I sat Alshon, unfortunately, I lost. But, sometimes when you have a really solid bench, you're weighing things out weekly. And, sometimes it's hard to tell who's going to really go off. But B. Marshall had 2 touchdowns. He had 90 yards receiving. Alshon had 1 touchdown and went over 100. He had 135 yards receiving. So, and I told you at the bar, I said, look, they're going to really go off because I put them on my bench this week.
You said it at the beginning of the game. You said it at the beginning of the game. And, I mean, of course, Forte, who's been balling out every week, he's the only consistent player on our team. 117 rushing yards, 58 receiving yards. So, I went crazy in my league that I have him, and I'm so happy to have Matt Forte, one of the surviving running backs from the first round drafts this year.
Yeah. And I did have a Bear in my lineup. I had Martellus Bennett. He didn't get in the end zone, didn't get a whole lot of points. but he was in my lineup. So, I did have at least one Bear in my lineup.
Yeah. Do we want to bring up Terry Bridgewater, or do we not want to bring up Terry Bridgewater?
Teddy?
Sorry, Teddy. Teddy. Mr. Bridgewater, 18 for 28, 158, 1 touchdown and a pick.
Yeah, I actually thought he would throw at least 2 touchdowns, even if he didn't throw a lot of yardage. But, he's a rookie, so.
Yeah, and here lies the problem. Mel Tucker, your head is still on the chopping block here. One good week of defense here and there, it's still not going to cut it for our team. It's just, it's not acceptable. We're still saying it. It's unacceptable for the Bears. So
yeah, and again, you're playing a Vikings team that's not an impressive team. So good defenses look impressive even against the best teams and the best quarterbacks. Yeah. So, and what I have to say about this Bears win as well is, again, the offense only scored 21 points.
Yep.
Cutler still turned the ball over 2 times. Granted, he didn't fumble. Good job, Cutler. You didn't fumble this game. But, again, when you're looking at the win and you're trying to pull out some positives, there's still things that are not happening for this team that should be happening. So I don't think they've totally, made themselves where they're not in trouble job-wise or things like that.
And again, in our Tinhorn segment, we're going to have people giving their opinions. And my view on this is last year, because Cutler got injured, we didn't get exposed to a lot of this. We got McCown, and McCown came in, and he did step up, and he ran the damn offense. And, he's not doing as well down in Tampa Bay, of course, because he doesn't have the weapons to throw to. But Evans, who was one of my picks last week, he has a hot new target in him, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we're going against Tampa Bay this week. Again, it's another home game for Chicago, and he will be a great test for our defense because if our defense can't slow Mike Evans down, you do have Vincent Jackson on the other side as well. If they fall off like they did against the Packers, the Patriots, like they did even against Miami, it's not going to be an easy game. It's not going to be a walk in the park, even though Tampa Bay doesn't have many wins on their season.
It's the Lovie Smith revenge game. Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good game. I'll be on a plane on my way to going to Vegas, so I'm going to miss the first half. But as I already told Jenilee, I'm going to get off the plane to about 30 texts about the game. So I will be updated. I know that's for sure.
I'm sure.
Big news, more talking about the Vikings. AP, the decision finally came down. He will be suspended indefinitely for the rest of the season. He will not be able to come off the list, says the NFL, until April of 2015. And he'll have to go to disciplinary, workshops and go through all of the counseling. There are a few reporters. I heard this on NFL Network, and I don't exactly know what the details are, but possibly if he appeals it, the union might be able to get him reinstated that way, saying, well, look, he's in the appeal process. You got to let him play. But it's kind of a long shot. All of you that picked up AP last week thinking he was going to be back in by December, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I picked him up and I dropped him, because it was something that, hey, if he comes back and plays, he could definitely be helping you in your playoffs.
Yeah, a little bit better than Asiata.
Yeah, but I definitely think, I think Goodell on this and the NFL, I think they're going to try to do everything that they can to keep the suspension. He's suspended, of course, without pay because they're really trying to make a stance. Yeah. And we saw how bad they messed up the Ray Rice situation and how bad they've messed up this year. So their PR cannot afford, basically, for this suspension not to hold. So I think the NFL is going to do everything they possibly can to keep him suspended.
I definitely think the good old boys club is going to make this one stick. I agree with you there. Just one other little point, fantasy-wise. Ben Tate, no longer a Brown. I know a lot of people picked him up in their drafts thinking, oh, well, he's, the guy to go to there. But it's turned out to be Terrence West over there, isn't it?
Yeah, and, he was a free agent running back, and he signed a pretty decent deal. I think he signed about $8.5 million for 2 years. So it is surprising that they're dropping him. already. But, you know, Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell have been
really
performing very well. I think it's still going to be a messy backfield a little bit because they're going to be using both those guys.
Right.
But, you know, no more Ben Tate. And a couple other people got dropped too.
Yeah. LeGarrette Blount over on the Steelers. I know he got cut. But fantasy-wise, he really didn't have an impact. Le'Veon Bell over there. They were using him. You maybe would have gotten vultured on touchdowns, but that didn't really ever happen.
No, and Jason Avant got cut from the Panthers as well. Again, not much going on. Very good in Carolina with their season, with their receivers. The only receiver that is really doing anything is Kelvin Benjamin. And, of course, good old tight end Greg Olsen for them. So
yeah. All right. Well, again, we're going to bring you some footage from the Tinhorn, a little bit of Bears hate, and then, of course, our picks. And you're up first this week.
I am up first. And, of course, be sure to like us on Facebook, facebook.com/BigBallsFantasyFootball. Go to our website, which is our hub, BigBallsFantasyFootball.com, and tweet us. You want to talk about our Twitter?
At BigBallsFBall. You can put questions up there. We'll answer them on the air like we always do. And I'm gonna make this announcement. We've had really, really low listenership on the podcast. We probably will do a farewell show at the very end of the season, so Prost and Cash and everybody can say goodbye. But because listenership is so low, thanks, guys, though. You've followed us to here. We started out as a little podcast with only 100 listeners a week, and now we have, you know, sometimes 5,000-6,000, you know, views on YouTube every week. So thanks for making the transition with us. We really appreciate it. But if you're going to go looking for a podcast this week, it's not going to be there.
Yeah, well, I think some people just, you know, they like the visual. So now you get to actually see the people behind the voices, and that's always a good thing.
They want to look at you. They don't want to look at me, but they definitely want to look at you and Smash and Lexi and Okay. Let's get on with the show. Stay tuned.
I need a real man. Have you seen him?
Hey everyone, and welcome to my Real Men segment. I of course have Zoe helping me out with this one. We are in week 12. You only have a few weeks left, depending on when your league starts playoffs, to get yourself into the playoffs and get your team ready to compete for the championship. So I have 3 picks that should all really help you out this week. One of them, I'll get to. The last one is pretty ballsy, but I'll explain that one, why I have that one this week. Now, my first pick this week is wide receiver Josh Gordon, and he is a 2-balls pick. That's right, Josh Gordon is finally back. If you were able to pick him up a few weeks ago and stash him, he is going to be playing this week. They're playing Atlanta, and Kelvin Benjamin had his second 100-yard game against Atlanta last week and a touchdown. He was my pick last week, and hey, I'm picking on Atlanta's pass defense again because they're not getting any better. Apparently, Gordon has been working out a lot, even though he hasn't been playing, and he's in excellent shape. And ATL is still dead last against the pass, so that's, again, why I'm picking on them. They're giving up the 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Another thing I like about this game is it's being played in Atlanta, so it's being played indoors because I don't know if any of you have been seeing the weather. I live in gorgeous Los Angeles, but the Midwest, the East Coast, has been getting hit with horrible weather. So you're going to want to get some players that are in indoor games. And the Browns need this spark on offense. They're only 14th in total offense, and they only scored 7 points against the Texans last week. So their offense is struggling quite a bit. Josh Gordon could be that guy. You all watched him play last year. He could be the one to really spark this offense and get them to score more points. So I wouldn't say wait this week and see how he does. I would say get him in your lineup this week. My second pick is quarterback Andrew Luck, and he's a 1-ball pick, of course, because he's having a fantastic year, fantasy-wise and in real life for the Colts. He has thrown for 3,388 yards so far, 28 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions, and he's added another 144 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns on the season. He is just balling out. He has a fantastic matchup this week against Jacksonville at home. He completely torched Jacksonville in Jacksonville when they played earlier this year. He threw for 370 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions in that game. Again, they're playing at home this time, so I can't imagine him being better, but I think he might even be better than when they played in Jacksonville. And you have to remember, Bradshaw is now out. He's on IR. Trent Richardson is going to carry the load. We've seen what he's been doing. He doesn't do a whole lot. So the Colts are a passing team, no doubt. But I think with Trent Richardson in the backfield, they're going to have to really rely on the pass. And Andrew Luck's going to have to put this team on his shoulders. This will be a good game for him against Jacksonville if the backfield isn't working as good. Let's move it on. Now, this is my ballsy pick for the week. My third pick is a ballsy one. It's running back Steven Jackson. It's a 3.5 on the ball scale. And I know you're probably sitting out there like, she's crazy. Why would you tell me to play him? He's a guy that you can put in your flex position this week, and this is why. Anton Smith just went on IR, so it's up to Steven Jackson and Jacquizz Rodgers over there in ATL. I think they're going to give Steven Jackson more of the load. Week 9, actually, I picked him up and I played him because one of my running backs was on a bye, and he did have a good week. Against Tampa Bay, he had 81 yards and a touchdown. So, hey, he got in the end zone. I'll take that. He's really having his best weeks against bad run defenses. Well, he's lucky because he gets the Browns, and they are a bad run defense. That's why I'm saying to play him, and he'd be a good flex position. The Browns are 30th versus the run. They're giving up 142 rushing yards per game, so this is why I like him this week. Again, I mentioned earlier, ATL is playing at home, so it's an indoor game against a really bad run defense. And Alfred Blue, who played in place of Arian Foster last week, played against the Browns, and he had 156 rushing yards against them. They've given up 100-yard games to 3 running backs so far this year. So even if Steven Jackson is splitting the backfield a little bit with Rodgers, I think he still could get you stats close to that Tampa Bay game, around 80 yards, maybe go for over 100 and get in the end zone again this week. So he might be a good guy. He's out there, I think, on pretty much every waiver wire. So if you're stuck at running back, if you don't have good matchups for your flex position, you can go out there and get him. So those are my 3 real men for this week. Greg, of course, has his beast mode picks for you as well.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Big Balls Fantasy Football. It's Greg the Beast with 3 Beast Mode picks this week for you. We are in week 12 of the NFL, and of course you're going into the playoffs in just a few weeks. You need to win those last minute games. I will be going to Vegas next week, so next week you will see segments from Jenilee and I filmed in different places, but in honor of Vegas, in honor of taking gambles, I'm giving you 3 players that you wouldn't have had any chance in the beginning of the season with because most of the time they weren't playing. Now you have teams that have dealt with injuries, you've had players get cut, you've had underperforming players. So these teams are bringing on players that, because of one situation or another, now really should be in your lineup. My first Beast Mode pick this week is, of course, wide receiver Jordan Matthews of the Eagles. Mark Sanchez looked fantastic in preseason, and he was throwing balls to Jordan Matthews like they were going out of style in preseason. Of course, Nick Foles started, and he was supposed to be, the great hope of the team, and now he's gotten injured. So now Sanchez is in, and Jordan Matthews is the guy. You really got to go with him. He has been on fire with 33 points back in Week 10, 22 fantasy points the week before. He's caught 7 passes for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns in Week 10, destroying the Panthers on Monday Night Football. I remember watching that game. That was also the game I told you to make sure you put Sanchez in on, and look what he did for you. He went crazy for you. He caught 5 passes for 107 yards, 1 touchdown in Sunday's 53-20 Week 11 loss at Green Bay. Came back and got you a ton of points in garbage time, though, because Sanchez was forced to pass. This is a 2-balls pick. You're playing the trends. Again, another player that some of you might have picked up earlier in the season. He didn't quite get play. Now he's getting play. Get him in your lineup against the Titans this week. My second beast mode pick for you, we go to the Denver Broncos, where first you started the season with Monte Ball. Then you, of course, had Ronnie Hillman, who I gave you as a pick, and you had a few really great weeks out of him. Now he's gotten injured. We fast forward. Monty Ball comes back last week, few snaps into the game. Oops. We all know how those groin injuries are in the NFL, so he's out. The week before, C.J. Anderson went crazy, and now you got to get C.J. Anderson in your lineup because not only is he running the ball, but he is also catching the ball in space because also in last week's game, of course, O.J. went out, Orange Julius went out, and Emmanuel Sanders, of course, you had problems with him being injured. So he had to get it to somebody, and they did a Matt Forte with his ass and got CJ the ball. He's going to get a lot of points for you this week. It's a 2-balls pick. They're playing the Dolphins D. Again, last week, rushed for 29 yards on 9 carries against the Rams in the loss. The shocking Rams beating the Broncos. A side note, Peyton Manning, I got to play him last week. Thank God. So get CJ in your lineup this week. My third beast mode pick for you is Denard Robinson, running back over there on the Jaguars. Again, another situation where you had Toby Gerhart. Everybody took him in the draft. We talked about him on our Studs and Duds segment weeks ago, and we all know Toby Gerhart went for a bust. In the meantime, Denard Robinson went past Storm Johnson and is now the emerging guy that you want, scoring touchdowns, getting you lots of points. Week 11, he rushed 15 times, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Cowboys. In Week 10, he again dominated the running back work. Gerhart got 4 carries. 4 carries this last week only. Last 4 weeks that he played before the bye. 20 points, 14 points, 18 points, 19 points. If you're playing in Yahoo, of course, you adjust that for other formats you're playing. But, hey, I will take that kind of production. And, again, my rule, as I always say, is, damn it, the team doesn't have to be winning in the NFL for you to get points out of the players on that team. Yes, the Jaguars stink, but their running back is getting you fantasy points. Get him in 2-balls pick against the Colts defense. So, again, at the beginning of the show, I said we were pretty damn pissed at the Bears last week. So we went over to Tinhorn Flats because we were playing the Vikings in a day game on a Sunday, and we wanted to get out there and really catch the bile that was going on with Bears fans over at Tinhorn, the most loyal Bears fans in SoCal. So here's some footage of Not So Funday Sunday over at Tinhorn.
Tonight, we ask the question, is winter out together? Then we probably answer.
Hey everybody, Big Balls Fantasy Football here. We know we've been talking about our Bears every week. We are here. The Bears are winning 14-10, and you would think we'd be ecstatic, but we're not, because there is still a lot of Bears hate going on. Trestman still isn't coaching well. Cutler has a great first half. Balls out, gets you fantasy points. Jeffrey gets fantasy points. Marshall gets fantasy points. But here's the problem. We are still in a lot of goddamn trouble because Trestman is just a weak coach, and we need to have some fire going. And Cutler, of course, had to end the half with a pick. There we go. There goes some of your points away. So we're here at Tinhorn this week, and we are going to film some Bears hate.
Hey, so Big Balls Fantasy Football here. This is Jenilee at halftime, breaking down some stats for you. The Minnesota Vikings haven't done that much of anything, but Teddy Bridgewater does have a touchdown for you in fantasy. Brandon Marshall has 85 yards, a touchdown. Alshon Jeffrey has 64 yards and a touchdown. And Matt Forte has gone for 49 yards, and he has 4 receptions for 43 yards. Also, Jay Cutler has over 200 yards passing in the half with 2 touchdowns. However, he did throw an interception, as Greg told you, at the very end of the half. The Bears are up 14-10. They get the ball back going into the third quarter, so hopefully the Bears will be getting you some more fantasy points. I need some more out of Martellus Bennett. He only has 1 catch for me so far, so we're going to break it down, talk to some Bears fans here, and then go in for the third quarter. Hey, Big Balls Fantasy Football here, and here we are with Aaron, who is normally a Bears fan, but I had my Bulls jersey on earlier this week, and he's got his Bulls jersey on. So do you want to talk a little bit Bears, maybe a little bit Bulls even?
Just talk about Chicago in general, the best city in the world. That's what I wish I was at the moment. But as far as our Bears go, the season isn't going the way everyone expected. But, I mean, come off season, we just probably need some changes. I mean, I don't know who. I'm not going to say what players, but organization needs to step up. Some people need to just take accountability, and we'll be all right. I say we'll be all right. We'll be all right.
Do you think we need a head coaching change this next season?
No, we don't. Not at the moment. Give him a chance. He just needs to He just needs to fire up the guys. Basically, he needs to, like I say, take accountability. I mean, he's made some bad decisions. Come off season. I mean, take responsibility for your mistakes and learn from them.
I was a little disappointed to see him run the ball at the end of the second quarter. We had a minute left. We had 2 timeouts. And instead of trying to push the ball down the field a little bit more, since our receivers have been getting open, we didn't get any points on the board, and I think he just wasted that time. So I was a little disappointed. Does that frustrate you that he becomes conservative at times when he should push the ball down a little down the field?
Very. I mean, we had that problem with Lovey at times. Playing. You got to play to win, not playing not to lose. I mean, we had a lot of time, like she said, Jenilee said, we had a lot of time. We had all the time in the world, basically. We got the offense. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't use that clock, manage the clock better, and try to go down the field and get some points. I mean, 3 would have been fine. Okay, just get some points. Act like you want to win. Act like you want to win, Bears.
Absolutely, and let's not forget that we fired Lovey after a 10-6 season. Robbie Gould did miss a field goal in the first half as well, so that kind of wraps us up for some Bears talk.
Chicago Bears, put up a fight with the fight so fearlessly. We'll never forget the way you built the nation. With your T formation, wear down Chicago Bears, and let them know why you're wearing the crown. You're the pride and joy of Illinois. Chicago Bears, wear down.
Big Balls Fantasy Football here. We got a Bears win this week. But you wouldn't know it here at Tinhorn because most of the people here were in different jerseys. Look at Anthony here. We're in the Blackhawks' beautiful red and black and white. Why are you wearing it?
I've been a Bears fan my whole life. This team has talent. The problem with this team is that they're underachieving. All those other years, there's been bad seasons. We had 02, we've had 03, we've had 04. But there was really nobody on the team. You had Brian Urlacher, that was it. You have a lot of talent on the team. You have Alshon Jeffrey. You have Brandon Marshall. You have Martellus Bennett. You have Matt Forte. You got a lot of guys that could do a lot of good things on the field, and they're underachieving. It's the first time I've ever been embarrassed to wear Bears gear. Just seeing the way they've been playing in these last few games. They get blown out by New England, 50-plus points. Setting a franchise record, 38 points in the first half has never happened against a Bears team ever in their storied franchise. They have a bye week. You go play your arch nemesis, and you give up 42 in the first half, breaking that record from just the previous game. It's something that is just sickening to me. I'll always watch the Bears. I will always watch the Bears. However, right now I'm just a little disappointed. And it's sad to say that I'm a little embarrassed to wear their gear because people know what happens on the streets. You know, unfortunately, the NFL is the largest sport in this country. People know the Blackhawks. They know the success. You got this one right here. You got 2010. You got 4 of the last 6 Western Conference Finals. But it's just football is bar none the biggest sport in this country, and it's sad to see this. It's nice to get a win. They still had 500 plus yards of offense and only 21 points. They won the game. It's nice. They finally got their home win. But you want to see more than just that. It doesn't make me any more confident going into next week. I know I'm kind of rambling here, but still.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, Anthony, because I was telling her, I'm like, okay, all of these Bear fans are going to all of a sudden go, oh, okay, you know, we're back on track right now. We're back on track. Everything's fine. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Management is still fucked. Trestman is still fucked. You know, the team still and the coaching especially is in a bad place.
I like the offense did a lot of good things today. The points weren't there, but they did good things. The defense still is not producing those turnovers we once saw. They had the one turnover right there at the last play of the game in garbage time.
It was given to them. It
was a gift. Yeah, it was a gift. It was a gift. So.
But yeah, we used to have this strong defense. We used to rely on that, and we can't. Last season, we got away with getting in shootout games. This season, it's just not going to happen. We need to actually have a real team, and the fans have spoken. I mean, you got Blackhawks jerseys out. We have Bulls jerseys out. We're going to show footage of that, too. It's really sad, the fact that Bears fans won't wear their own colors during a goddamn game. I'd even go retro.
I'm going retro next week. I'm going to wear my dad's Dick Butkus. Yes. But I still got the hat. I'll always support this team. I will never stop supporting this team. I'll never be fair weather.
Yep.
However, I just am stopping to contribute giving money to this franchise because they need to get it together. It's the oldest franchise in the NFL, arguably, maybe Green Bay. And you look at a team like New England that's just doing all these good things. You see what they're doing. I had the numbers like 2 weeks ago after that loss. The number of playoffs they've been to in the amount of years that Tom Brady's been there versus the Bears. I mean, it's just...
And one final word. This is the first week. In all the time I can remember, I get an email from the Bears. Oh, we have tickets available for a game.
Really?
When though?
Wow.
Oh, you didn't even see?
No,
you didn't
I did not know that. Wow.
There were tickets available for this game to watch.
Wow.
Unbelievable. You never would have that. At StubHub, of course, you can go anytime.
Right.
But as
Is it
generally...
Ticketmaster?
No,
or from Chicago Bears? Okay.
Yeah, from the Bears. You could have gotten a ticket to the game this week.
Wow.
Horrible. That's how horrible our team was doing. The fact that season ticket holders gave up their tickets. You could go Ticketmaster. You could get tickets. That's where the state of the Bears is right now. So yes, we got to win. I'm very happy. But in fantasy-wise, of course, Jay Cutler, Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, everybody went crazy. But you know, hold the fort. We'll wait till next week. This is Big Balls Fantasy Football signing out. Wilson! Ta-da!